One of the most captivating animated shows in the last decade. For 2 seasons in a 4-year span, Gravity Falls allured viewers with its mysteries, intricate plot, and well-written humor. Set in the summer in a small town with strange anomalies, Gravity Falls sees many strange happenings, some of which can be considered criminal.
You think I've been having fun in here?
Hey, best friend!
Many characters throughout the show have been known to create havoc throughout the titular Oregon town, but what if they had to answer for their crimes? I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and today we're sentencing Gravity Falls characters for their crimes. Court is in session. Now, today we'll be looking at the actions of various characters committed that would be considered criminal. And no, we won't be giving out any passes for heroes. We'll merely be looking at any questionable criminal things they've done, and giving our sentences based on the severity as any judge would. And for this video, we'll also be taking into account Oregon laws, as the show is set in that state. Now, first up on the docket, we have Mr. Mystery himself, Stanley Pines. Known throughout the show for his fake tourist attractions and greedy business practices, he leads a secret life trying to bring his brother back from a dimensional portal. From the day he was kicked out for accidentally ruining his brother's high school science project, Stan has gotten himself into a series of criminal activities, selling defective products like the Sham Total towel or the shoddy Stanco pitchforks. He was banned from 32 out of 50 states for these defective products. That's well over half the country he's not allowed to step foot in. Sometime after these failed business ventures, he committed some heist in Colombia that resulted in him being thrown in prison. After reuniting with his brother, Stanford Pines, he's tasked with hiding his brother's research. Stanford is too proud of his work to let Stanley burn it, resulting in a scuffle that ends with Ford falling into his dimensional portal. Since then, Stanley tries to find out how to reactivate the portal to bring his brother back, looking for ways to make money to procure the technology to do so. He assumes the identity of Stanford Pines in ownership of his home, turning it into a tourist trap that allures the townspeople. Throughout his time as Mr. Mystery, Stan is said to have gotten in trouble with other endeavors. In the episode Stanchurian Candidate, it was said he was accused of pug trafficking across multiple states. In Bottomless Pit's Truthic, Stan admits to committing tax fraud. He also oversaw Dipper and Mabel's usage of illegal fireworks, which are specifically illegal in Oregon.
Here you go, sweetie. Set something on fire for your grunkle Stan.
Lastly, the events of the Season 2 episode, Not What He Seems, shows Stan stealing barrels of radioactive chemicals. And during the universe portal's activation, several gravity anomalies occur throughout the day. I mean, entire buildings and people's cars just float up into the air, and then come crashing down. That is a lot of property damage. So let's get to the sentencing. First off, his initial crimes of a failed heist and being banned for defective products will not be counted towards this sentence. As selling defective products is a crime, it's likely a civil one, and being banned from entire states for them sounds a bit too far, though his products like the rip-off bandage could have him sued for creating rashes, maybe even a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Then his Colombian prison sentence was already served, so that crime is no longer applicable. The charges that are relevant to this sentence are animal trafficking, tax fraud, identity theft, illegal possession of fireworks, widespread property damage, and theft of radioactive chemicals. Likely, Stanford Pines won't press charges against his brother for impersonating him, as he would understand it was all to obtain the money to build the portal to bring him back. But stealing these chemicals will be the heaviest charge for Stan. That and tax fraud, as nobody messes with the IRS and lives to tell. In Oregon, the possession of fireworks amounts to a $1,000 fine, and a federal offense of stealing chemicals amounts to $200K. But that latter charge of stealing chemicals will also land him in federal prison for 10 years, with no chance of parole. You had a good run, Stan. Good luck in prison. Next up, we have Gideon Gleeful, the first main antagonist of the series. Gideon too operated a tourist attraction with the tent of telepathy, after becoming enemies with Stan Pines, and making enemies with his nephew Dipper. Gideon went to some great lengths to take him and the mystery shack down. First on Gideon's list of crimes is kidnapping. He literally held Dipper and Mabel hostage in his room after shrinking freeing them in the Season 1 episode, Little Dipper. After that, he breaks into Stan's home and causes property damage, breaking the mirrors he set up. Throughout the rest of Season 1, Gideon attempts to break into the shack multiple times. In Dreamscaperers, he steals the deed to Stan's house from his safe by blowing it up with dynamite, which is illegal in the state much like fireworks. In the Season 1 finale, Gideon rises. He committed massive spying on the townspeople through his button cameras, which landed him in prison. And he destroys a bus with a giant mech.
Once I find the final journal, I'll rule this town!
Lastly, in Weirdmageddon Part 1, Gideon and his fellow inmates break out of prison upon Bill Cipher's arrival. So we have kidnapping, property damage, breaking and entering, illegal possession of dynamite, mass spying on civilians, property damage, and breaking out of prison. Quite a resume for a 10-year-old child. Again, possession of dynamite, like fireworks in Oregon, is a $1,000 fine. In the state, kidnapping in the first degree is a minimum 90-month sentence, when for the purpose of a ransom. In Gideon's case, the Mystery Shack deed. Considering Gideon was tried as an adult and thrown in prison for his surveillance crime, we would give him the same level of treatment with a sentence of 10 years in prison, with a chance of parole, though likely he'll form another prison gang and break out again. Our third character is Preston Northwest. Wealthiest resident of Gravity Falls, Preston comes from a family who owes their wealth and fame to the fabled founder of Gravity Falls, Nathaniel Northwest. We're not sure what shady business dealings he may have going on, but the main crimes we'll focus on are in regards to treatment of his daughter and actions with a cult. His daughter, Pacifica, molded to be flawless and graceful, isn't given the honor roll student treatment. Throughout the series, we see how distant Preston and his wife treat Pacifica, often neglectful, not giving time to watch her mini-golf match against Mabel.
We have a party to go to. We'll just read about your victory in the paper.
But in the Northwest Mansion mystery, a darker side of Pacifica's relationship with her father is revealed. Every time Pacifica speaks out of turn to voice how she feels, he rings a bell to keep her in line. This can be registered as psychological abuse. The other great offense Preston has committed was as a member of the Blind Eye Society. Along with several other Gravity Falls residents, he assisted in kidnapping residents and memory wiping them. Preston's crimes amount to psychological manipulation of his daughter, which would be considered child abuse, and kidnapping. In his state, this abuse gets him a year in jail, and kidnapping 7.5 years. Thus, we sentence Preston Northwest to 8 years in prison with no parole. But knowing him, he'll probably get some favors in prison to make life a bit more enjoyable. But real quick before we get to our last entry, if you're enjoying the sentencing format, make sure to check out our Cinema Sentencing channel. We'll actually be sentencing characters from live-action movies and television series over there, and we'd love to have you go check it out. Link below. Speaking of the Blind Eye Society, next we have their ringleader, Blind Ivan. The Blind Eye Society was first founded by Fiddleford McGucket. After being exposed to the Dark Dimension via Stanford Pine's universe portal, McGucket wanted to forget the horrifying things he saw. Inventing the memory gun, he wiped his memories of Bill Cipher's evil, and wanted to extend this to townspeople who witnessed the strange things in the town. After using the memory gun so much and going crazy, this tattooed guy took over the society from McGucket. In his tenure, he coordinated kidnapping citizens of Gravity Falls and forcibly removed their memories. He may not remember his crimes anymore after having the memory gun used on him, so the state's law giving 90 months seems a tad bit much for this special case. But for these heinous acts and his special circumstances, we sentence Blind Ivan, or Toot Toot McBumbersnazzle as he's known now, to the slammer for 5 years, with a chance of parole. And lastly, we have the big bad himself, Bill Cipher. If we had to charge this extra-dimensional weird creature as a human, the list of his crimes would be as long as a bottomless pit. It's hard to pinpoint his crimes in the Mindscape, so for the sake of this video, let's focus on what we've seen throughout his reign of terror in Weirdmageddon. To start off, he possessed Blendin Blandin's body to destroy the Universal Rift. Untold damage is caused by Bill and his gang throughout Gravity Falls.
It's time to take our chaos worldwide!
People are kidnapped left and right via his eyeball bats and turned into pieces for a throne. Citizens are tortured, like Preston Northwest's face and Grunkle Ford and Bill's interrogation of him, and Time Baby and a unit of his time anomaly enforcers are just outright killed by Bill. We're looking at kidnapping, torture, and mass murder, and for that, we're giving Bill Cipher the death penalty via Time Baby. According to an end credits cryptogram, it will take 1,000 years for him to regrow his molecules, so maybe we'll hold Bill inside his universe for the time being. Or we can have Blendin use his time lapse to bring Bill to a time in the past when Time Baby still still lives. Does that work? Am I getting time travel right? I'm confused. But let us know what you think the sentencing should be for these Gravity Falls characters. Make sure to hit that notification bell and binge our other sentencing videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.